Welcome to the London Property Podcast, your go-to source for navigating the complex and ever-changing London real estate market. Our digital marketplace provides informative and educational content from industry leaders through podcasts and videos. We cover various aspects of the real estate experience, including buying and selling, finance, law, tax, construction, design, and more. Join us as we delve into the latest trends and developments in the market and gain valuable insights from our panel of experts.
Hello and welcome to London Property, the home of Super Prime. I'm your host Farnaz Fazaipour, and today we're delighted to welcome back Trevor Abrahmsohn, who to people in North London need no introduction, but do please tell us a little bit for our listeners who might not have heard about you. What is your area of speciality in the prime central London market?
Okay, I'm the oldest swinger in town. I'm almost 50 years in the saddle. And we cover the corridor along the northwest London direction from St John's Wood in a northwest direction. And basically, we know a lot about a little, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. And from your point of view, what has the last 12 months been like and what sort of trends have you seen?
I'd say the last 12 months have been patchy. There's no immediate pattern. Sales have taken place, but without any rhyme or reason. There is no trend, i.e. a particular nationality buying or not buying. I would say that sentiments are calm. The election is being long forecast, so people know about that. And the hope of interest rates coming down as inflation goes down is a positive backdrop, subplot to the story. So I think people are still buying. It's a very price-sensitive market. So you can't just ask for what you want. Sorry, I'm talking about sales now. Rentals is another conversation.
And if you were to predict of what's to come, what would your prediction be?
Well, actually, there hasn't been a lot of growth overall in terms of sales in the marketplace over the last 2 or 3 years. Yes, after COVID, there was a bounce back where people came back with a vengeance, and for instance, you would show a property, I don't know, £3 to £5 million, you'd get 30 to 40 appointments in the first 3 weeks, you'd get 5 offers, and you'd go to best bids and the buyer would buy it. And they were good times. They were vibrant. There was a lot of fizz in the market. Over the last 2 years, a lot of that fizz has dissipated. So that same property, you'd see, say, 10 to 15 people instead of 30 to 40 people. You'd get probably 1 to 2 bids, but one of those would buy it. But as long as the asking price is not more than 5 or 10% away from real underlying value. Any vendor that wants to overcook the price, and unfortunately agents are far too subservient. They're too interested in gaining the instruction than advising the client. And we are very proud, independent agents, and we tell the truth. We're not frightened to tell the truth, and we encourage our clients to want the truth, because others that just want the instruction will not sell it, and you'll lose the impact of the house on the marketplace. So getting the price right is really important, because otherwise you will not sell it. Now, if you do exceed the price by 10%, you could be marketing the property in sales for many years without any event taking place.
Very good point. What is your opinion about the elections and the effects it's having on the housing market?
Okay, the election is now baked, the result of the election is now baked into people's mindset. So people assume that there will be a Labour, you could say left-wing Labour Party in power in a matter of weeks. They've been very judicious and very clever about their manifesto, which is very innocuous, and it doesn't dilate people's pupils, it doesn't spook the horses. I'm saying the middle to upper middle class horses, the people in that sector. People assume that there will be a change of government. There are some people, even Tories, that want a change of government to punish the Tories. But I think one's got to be very careful what you wish for, because although the facade of the Labour Party seems perfectly acceptable and centre to left and espouses centre to left politics, to be honest, the momentum that used to drive the party in Corbyn's day and Angela Rayner is a vestigial connection to that. We just don't know what lurks beneath. Is this a gift or is it the Trojan horse? We don't know that, and we'll soon find that out. The problem is, if the Labour Party get a landslide victory, then a lot of their radical stuff that's in the cupboard, tucked away, will be brought forward. And the reason why they'll bring out those policies is because they can. So, for the moment, there is not great unrest. Deals are being agreed, and interestingly enough, people exchanging contracts regardless of the election. Now, I would have thought, I've traversed 4 recessions, and I would have thought that buyers would hold off until after the election. Now, I have to say, I'm very proud to live in Hampstead Garden suburb, and I was I got within 3% of the vendor's price on my house in 1992, and I was 3 weeks away from an election. They were predicting that Neil Kinnock, with a left-wing, but a seriously left-wing party, would come in, and I suspended the negotiations until after the election. John Major, with the Tory party, unexpectedly came in, and then I tried to close the gap. He was a Greek vendor, and he made life very difficult for me at the time because he had renewed confidence, because it was the Tories were back and he didn't want to talk about the sale of the house. He had thought that the Labour Party would come in. So I had that mindset, but a lot of people feel that actually the Labour policies, by their own admission, would not be vastly different to the Tory policies. They are constrained by not being able to borrow to spend. They can borrow to invest, but not to spend. Therefore, the days of a spendthrift Labour Party who would borrow a lot, pour a lot of money into the economy, therefore the economy would normally do well, are over. They can't do that. They have learned from the Truss effect that uncosted borrowing will spook the markets, and there'll be a run on the pound and all sorts of things. So they are much more composed. neutered. The policies will not be a lot different. And I think that's calming people's sentiments, which is not a bad thing.
Very good. Thank you. My next question is, what do you have to say about the rental market?
Governments would do well not to interfere in the dynamics of markets, particularly the rental market. Now, I'll give you an example. The Labour Party have talked, particularly the left-wing zealots in the Labour Party, have talked about rent controls and giving more powers to the tenants who are maybe financially vulnerable and haven't paid their rent, and you can't kick them out, and no fault eviction, etc., etc. Now, what has happened is the Tory party have taken away a lot of the fiscal benefits of renting. So buy-to-let landlords were treated like pariahs, and the tax write-offs that you used to enjoy in the rental market no longer, landlords no longer do. So buy-to-let investors are becoming a rare breed today. So a lot of them have sold out because with the higher cost of borrowing, a lot of their investments, their rental investments, no longer work, and they had to put money into their investments to keep them going. Consequently, landlords sold out to de-gear and reduce their borrowings. The net effect is that the supply of rental properties, this is in the, I suppose, £500 a week to about £1,500 a week market. Therefore, the supply is being constrained. Tenants have increased, the number of tenants have increased because, prospective tenants, because the cost of borrowing have gone up, and the gap between what they can afford as a deposit and what they need to pay has widened. Therefore, they have to rent for longer. So consequently, there are more, these people would have bought, but they can't buy. So the demand is greater, the supply is reduced, and rental values have gone up. Now, if the Labour Party continue trying to interfere with this by changing legislation as it applies to the Rent Act, more landlords will sell, there'll be less properties available, and prices will go up, further disenfranchising the vulnerable tenant. So the opposite effect, the Labour Party will have the opposite effect to what they require. What all parties need to get used to is there is a partnership which needs to be encouraged, not chastised, between the housing supply and private landlords. The government needs private landlords because there aren't enough council-owned properties to let. So they need the private landlords, and they need more of them, not less of them. So if I were them, I would encourage landlords to come into the market, buy and rent, because it diffuses the pent-up demand for rentals whilst they do increase the housing supply. And interestingly enough, I know that the Tories have not covered themselves with glory with the housing market having 6 housing ministers in a very short space of time. They're building 150,000 new homes a year when the target was 300,000 homes. Don't forget, in Margaret Thatcher's day in the 80s, we were building, with a smaller population, 300,000 homes, which is pro rata, many more than would be needed today. So we're still building half the homes. We need the rental properties. I'm interested that Keir Starmer is talking about a root and branch reform on planning. That means that more properties could come, more developments could come on stream, because the Tories were very worried about NIMBYism. Now, I'll give you an example, if I may. I was talking to a former councillor. He was a very prominent man in his field. And I said to him, you know something? In Thatcher's day, a developer would go into a planning meeting, and the planning officer would look at the scheme and he said, well, can't you build a bit more here and build a bit more here and there? And I said, that's the default thinking was, can you build more? And of course, what happens is that's now transplanted to the default thinking now, can we build less? And this councillor said to me, oh, you see, he was very proud of it. He gave me an example of, in one scheme, the developer wanted 8 stories on a tower block, and then they reduced it to 7, and then reduced it to 6, and the councillors finally agreed on 5. And I said to him, why didn't you agree on 12? You should have agreed on 12. Because, oh no, the effect it would have on the surrounding neighbours. And I thought to myself, well, St. Paul's was probably the tallest building in its day in the 17th century, whenever Christopher Wren built it. And that must have towered over everything else. And if they were worried about the impact on the landscape, St. Paul's would never be built, the Shard would never be discovered, and the City of London would just be a 2 up, 2 down, a nondescript area. So the answer is planning needs root and branch reform. And I think that the Labour Party may have the cojones to do something about it, which is good news.
Great. Okay. Now, the final question I have is about non-doms. So there's a lot of chatter amongst the professionals in the market and foreigners who've been living here for a while, in my opinion, potentially coming to the end of the time that they were going to be here anyway. So how much of it is reacting and being dramatic and how much it is real? Is my question is, have you actually experienced the non-doms are leaving, and how are they reacting to this change in legislation? Proposed change in legislation, I should say, because it hasn't gone in the Finance Act yet, but...
Can never be, because the Labour Party will have their own ideas of non-dom reforms. Let's see it for what it is. Non-doms is a political football which is used by the class warriors to exemplify avarice, how capitalism works against the working man, the new term, the working man. So why should people be able to pay less tax when others are paying more tax? If people can get over themselves and look at the big picture instead of the small petty politics picture, they will see that actually non-doms bring a lot of wealth to this country. They employ people. If they're here, they start businesses here. They employ, they take risks, they pour capital, they raise taxes of their own, and the country is better off for them. Just factor that in. But unfortunately, because it is a political football and because the Tory party have tried to steal the Labour Party clothes on this by doing these reforms in the last budget, unfortunately, you've got a half-baked entity which is scaring some people away. That's not good news. We're in the Brexit era, we should be encouraging people to invest here. We should be dropping corporation tax. We should be allowing non-doms here. We should be getting rid of enabling the VAT reclaim for a lot of these international investors. And I'll give you an example. So an international consumer goes to one of the shops, wherever it is, Sloane Street, Bond Street, or Oxford Street, and they buy a large ticket item. They can reclaim the VAT when they take it out the country, but they can't bring it in again without paying VAT. So because we had this facility, we got rid of this facility. Most of the other European countries have that facility. So all that shop does is they alert the shop in Paris, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, wherever it is, Rome, and they buy it on their travels through Rome, the same article, and get the VAT reclaim from them. So it's just plain stupid. So the government should be encouraging these people. Some non-doms are selling up, there's no question. They don't want to be part of the UK tax net, which is a great pity. Others, and I've got a particular strain of buyer from California, for instance, who are very wealthy people that are disaffected Californians, fed up with the crime, the drugs, the taxes in California, can't find a home in America and want to set up base in the UK. Now, we should encourage these people. They're part of their own tax net, so they bypass the non-dom issue, if you will. But so you could say as someone leaves, someone's replacing them. I think it's really important for me to say that London, despite the Tories not doing a good job of encouraging these people with the measures I've already mentioned, is the greatest city on earth, not because Londoners say so, because everyone who visits London says so. It has 45% green open spaces. It's tolerant, it's civil. It is the happening place for many diverse industries, from AI to media, to financial services, to insurance, to couture, to racing car technology, to, I don't know if I mentioned IT. All the members of the family can study, work in the world-class places, all in one place. Whereas in New York, for instance, if the husband had a job in a bank or the wife had a job in the bank, and the children want to pursue a political career, they'd be in Washington. Semiconductors, they'd be in San Francisco. Films, they'd be in LA or Miami. So they'll be in different places than their parents. Now that breaks up a family. That's why St. Columbus Day, Christmas, Easter are so important to the Americans. Here, all those members of the family can all be in London. Hence why London is usually the second most important place to most resourceful people in the world, regardless of our commercial size. It's no accident that China are spending £850 million on their embassy in London. Is that because we're the second or third largest economy in the world? No, it isn't. But you add our soft power to our hard power, and you have a very important city. So, for instance, Paris is a souvenir city and always was. London was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. But today, London is a financial colossus. And for instance, you could buy a property in London, in Hampstead for argument's sake, with 11 acres of ground, nestled between two medieval villages of Highgate and Hampstead, with two golf courses within walking distance, a private and public airport within half an hour, and the finest schools in the world on your doorstep. So you can't find that anywhere else in the world. So even regardless of non-doms and all the other things that they should be doing, London will always emerge victorious. And people want to be here. And I've lived in London. I'm South African by birth, but I've lived in London for over 60 years, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And a lot of people feel that way.
Totally agree. I am like you, from somewhere else, but this is home. Well, thank you very much for talking to us. It's always a pleasure hearing your insight, and we'll no doubt have you back again after the elections have settled in and see how the market has absorbed a potentially new government.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to our latest episode of the London Property Podcast. Head over to our website where you can browse our exclusive network of top experts driving the market. As a member, you'll have direct access to our experts and their networks. Our award-winning content will help you choose the right professionals for your needs and make informed decisions about your investments. Personal recommendations are a powerful tool in connecting with trusted professionals. Let us introduce you to the right people to help you achieve your real estate goals. Contact us now to learn more about becoming a member and gaining access to these valuable resources, or joining our directory of experts.